Hello dudes, RyanDude5678 here, and today I come to you with a different kind of video compared to what I would typically do on this channel, and that is a ranking video. With me recently 100%ing Mario Kart World and having over 100 hours of playtime, I figured now's a better time than any to make my own ranking of every track in the game. Now, before we get into things, I want to remind you that this is solely my opinion. For example, if my number one spot is somehow your least favourite track in the game, that's a-okay. So please, let's try to keep things civil in the comments, even if you or anyone else agrees or disagrees with my takes here. Second, this ranking will be based on the classic 3-lap versus mode iterations of these tracks, not the Grand Prix iterations with the intermission tracks. Got all that? Okay then. Let's get right into ranking every Mario Kart World track. Let's go! Number 30, Starview Peak. Now, before you immediately dislike the video and cancel me for this opinion, hear me out. Coming into Mario Kart World, I was not expecting this to be my least favourite track in the game, but I have my reasons for it. This track is basically just a few large turns, not even fun ones if I'm being honest, and then a pretty plain water section with zero obstacles to make things hard or interesting. Now, I will give this track some credit as it's the track that introduces you to this new version of water driving, so the simplicity kind of makes sense here, but still, even if it's just doing its job, I cannot pretend that it's better than it is. This track would have greatly benefited from more path options, some obstacles on the track, more shortcuts, more grind rail and wall riding opportunities, and basically anything else that the game has to offer. In terms of shortcuts, there's only really one notable one, and it's a short one in the water section of the track. Even Mario Bros. Circuit has more going for it than this. And to add salt to the wound, the Comet Observatory isn't even a part of the track. You're inside of it at the start and glide back into it at the end, but other than that, you won't even know that it's there throughout your races. Free Roam does a way better job with this track, having P-switches on the rings of the observatory, Peach medallions on the chandeliers, and even allowing you to explore the bottom floor section below the starting line. I think if these sections were implemented into the track itself, this would have been way higher on the list. But in the end, it comes off as being, in my opinion, the biggest missed opportunity out of all 30 tracks in the game. Sorry Rosalina fans, but this wasn't the Ice World Redemption arc that I was hoping for. Number 29, Koopa Troopa Beach. It genuinely sucks putting this track so low on the list, as I do genuinely enjoy racing on it, but I have to be honest with myself here and say that this really is just a circle. It's essentially this game's baby park, to sum it up simply. As a simple track enjoyer slash defender, I do enjoy this track, but compared to the rest of the game's tracks, it really does nothing special. There's not even many notable shortcuts outside of a few grass patches that you can mushroom over. I do appreciate the 5-lap format this track goes for, as it was originally a Super Mario Kart track, but that combined with the incredible DJ-esque remix is really all I can give this track credit for. Number 28, Desert Hills. Another track that, while I do enjoy racing on it and have nothing against it, is yet again another really simple design that doesn't really do much to stand out amongst the rest of the competition. I think it's more interesting than the last two spots on the list, but not by much. At least this track has a few decent shortcuts that you can take, and a couple of alternate routes to spice things up for added replayability. I also appreciate that they changed the Pokies to the Toko Toko enemies from Mario Land 1 on the Game Boy. Because the desert biome in this game is heavily inspired by Sarasaland from the same game, Daisy's Kingdom, changing the enemies to represent that is really appreciated. Still though, that reference is arguably the coolest part of the track, so despite it being another simple track that I do enjoy racing on, I cannot give it more credit than it deserves. Number 27, Mario Bros. Circuit. Well, here it finally is, the introductory track of Mario Kart World. Some people might think that even this is too high for such a track, but I disagree. Hell, I had to stop myself from putting it higher than it realistically deserves. That's how much I like this one. In fact, I'd argue this is my current favourite introductory track in the entire series. It's of course a very simple track, but it's what it does that puts it this high for me. This track does a pretty damn good job at introducing most of the main new mechanics while not shoving them down your throat either. Charge jumping, rail grinding, and wall riding. Wall riding is definitely the most underutilised of the three in this track, as there's only really one small wall to do it on, but it still does a good job at least explaining how the mechanic works and telling you that it's here. but the track excels at telling you about charge jumping and especially rail grinding. The number of shortcuts this track has is honestly pretty insane, more than I was expecting it to have. There's this alternate path that not only acts as a shortcut, but also showcases the tweaked gliding that this game has, which is really cool in my opinion. Then there's your obligatory mushroom shortcuts and using the rails to your advantage. But my favourite has to be this shortcut hidden behind some tyres right after the starting line. There's a hidden grind rail right behind these tyres that you can only access through a mushroom, and it effectively allows you to take this entire turn really sharply, saving a bunch of time. It's a shortcut most people probably don't even realise exists, and that's why I love it so much. It's so cleverly hidden, yet so useful once you know it's there, especially in time trials. Overall, I think this track, while far from the best in the game, is criminally underrated and not talked about nearly enough. It even has a unique desert theme compared to the typical grassy circuits that you'll see in most Mario Kart games, so even from an appearance standpoint, this track really stands out as a starting track. But hey, let me know what your thoughts are on this track, because, in my opinion, not enough people talk about it. Number 26. Wario's Galleon. This is probably the first super controversial take of the ranking, but I cannot lie to myself and pretend like Wario's Galleon, or Shipyard for my American viewers, is my cup of tea. I wasn't fond of this track originally, and I'm still not super fond of it now. The water tracks in this game already aren't my favourites, but I feel like Wario's Galleon is my least favourite of the bunch. Like, I'm never giddy with excitement whenever this track gets picked, but I'm also not particularly offended whenever it appears either. I'm just very neutral with this one. I think seeing the course in this entirely new perspective thanks to the underwater driving being surfing now is cool, but ultimately, this track just isn't the most fun to drive on in my opinion. The layout isn't super interesting and it feels like the track could have been a lot more. It almost feels basic compared to the super interesting theme of the track itself, you know? Driving on water can feel very hit or miss in this game, and of course, this track is no exception. I appreciate a lot of the new shortcuts, such as this rope grinding section right at the end after getting blasted from the cannon, but if anything, I feel like this is one of those courses that almost worked better with the underwater driving. To me, it complemented the theme of the track a lot better, whereas here, sure you can still tell it's Wario's Galleon, but something almost feels missing, if you know what I mean. I don't know, I really hope this track grows on me as time progresses, because I genuinely do like it, especially thematically. But right now, I just cannot say that it's my favourite to race on. Sorry, Galleon fans. Number 25. Moo Moo Meadows. Well, if the last entry was the first super controversial take of the ranking, this one is going to get me cancelled. But hear me out. Moo Moo Meadows is a phenomenal track, arguably one of the most iconic tracks in the entire series. But if I'm being honest, I can't help but be let down by its inclusion in this game. I get Cow as a playable character this time around, but every time this track comes up, I can only think about one thing. Why didn't they just remake Moo Moo Farm instead? Moo Moo Meadows is already available on the Switch 2 through Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's backwards compatibility, and we haven't seen Moo Moo Farm since Mario Kart DS. I feel like with that track especially being really basic, they could have pulled a Choco Mountain and completely remade this track from the ground up into something unrecognisable, but instead, we just got Moo Moo Meadows again for the second time in a row. But even putting that strange as hell decision aside, I've also just never really been the biggest Moo Moo Meadows guy. It's a fine track, but the layout has never been the funnest track around to me. It's fun every now and then, but if I'm constantly replaying this one, it does get boring after a while. Although, I do appreciate some of the new shortcuts that were added, such as this one ramp near the end of the track. Overall, Moo Moo Meadows is still Moo Moo Meadows, and I'd argue this is my favourite variant of the track so far. But personally, I would have been 10 times happier seeing Moo Moo Farm get given a second or, well, third chance at life. This is one of the biggest cases of what feels like a wasted slot to me in this game. Not only that, but the competition is so tough that I simply cannot justify putting Moo Moo Meadows any higher than this. Sorry dudes. Number 24. Choco Mountain. This retro was revamped so much it almost feels unrecognisable, and in my opinion, not in a bad way. It starts off with some very fun tight roads as you make your way towards a tunnel blocked by charging trucks. Then you get to a really wide area filled with mud as you try to make your way back to the main road. but be careful, as giant boulders can also rain down onto this road, so keep an eye out and stay frosty. But once you get past this point, it's basically just a few more turns with some optional rails and you're back at the start. So overall, a pretty short track, but one that I never have a problem with playing. I love how much they revamped this one. I think the super skinny roads especially help make this one a challenge sometimes, as having a track this skinny with 24 players is always a recipe for chaos. And in this track's case, I like it. Number 23. Dandelion Depths. This track gives me major Wooded Kingdom vibes from Odyssey, and I really appreciate that. I already loved that world thematically and visually, so to see a track that looks almost identical to it is a nice rush of nostalgia. Plus, it's cool to have something remind me of Odyssey, given Nintendo refuses to acknowledge that game themselves outside of a few remixes in this game. Come on Nintendo, where's my boy Cappy at? Sorry, we're getting off topic here. Anyway, this track could have been way higher, but it's just a little simple from a layout perspective. You've got a few turns, a nice water section with multiple paths leading to it, but after that, it's essentially one final turn to the finish line. I feel like this is one of those tracks that needed to be a little longer. Maybe the water section could have been extended a little bit or something, because this track always leaves me wanting more, I've noticed. But overall, a solid track. I just think it could have greatly benefited from being extended just a little bit and maybe for a few more obstacles in there. But other than that, a solid course that I have no real problem with. Number 22. Cheep Falls. This track is surprisingly the only autumn-themed track in the game. I was pretty surprised when I noticed this, and it's honestly super unfortunate as autumn is probably my favourite season, but I think it does a good job at being the only autumn-themed track. The layout, while still on the simpler side, is at least fun and interesting to race on. There are some cool shortcuts and routes to take, the music and theming is really nice, and the Cheeps are pretty damn tough to dodge. It's the first track so far that has had some pretty difficult obstacles to avoid. Even 100 plus hours into my playtime with this game, and I'm still consistently getting caught off guard by these little dudes. And you know I always appreciate a good challenge. I think the water driving being pretty hard to control definitely helps the difficulty as well. Overall, just a solid track. It's at this point where I really started to struggle ranking the tracks. That's how solid this game's lineup is in my opinion. We're only a few spots into the ranking, and I'm already struggling to decide which tracks I like over the others. World definitely has one of the stronger bass track lineups in the series in my opinion. Number 21. Boo Cinema. This is probably my most controversial take yet, but to me, Boo Cinema, while easily being the best track in the game thematically, isn't as interesting of a track as I would have hoped. It's a very linear track. There's barely any shortcuts to take with the exception of one classic mushroom shortcut near the start of the track. There's a couple of grind rails in the cinema itself, which in my opinion feel pretty worthless whenever I've used them, and other than that, it's basically just a few turns and straight lines, with the actual screen section of the track easily being the best part. But even despite it being the best part, even it is not all that. Visually stunning, but from a track design standpoint, it's very simple. Almost too simple. A track with this level of uniqueness should have a track design to go along with it and match those standards, and yet this one just feels like it missed the mark. It's also, once again, a very short track. It feels like it's over in a blink of an eye, which probably doesn't help this track's case at all. I think if the actual in-screen section was way longer than it is, this easily could have been one of the best tracks in the game. But as it stands right now, it once again feels like a pretty big missed opportunity. An incredible theme locked behind a relatively mediocre track layout with next to no variety, alternate routes or shortcuts, etc. Maybe they even could have had the Boo Valley reference tracks outside of Boo Cinema as part of the actual track, instead of restricting them to the intermissions and free roam. That would have increased the length of the track, and made things a little more interesting. But alas, that was not the case. This is still a phenomenal track that I adore playing on, but I just can't shake the feeling that it could have been so much more. Number 20. Faraway Oasis. This is another one of those tracks that's relatively simple, but this one definitely does a better job than most when it comes down to that concept. First off, the theme is amazing. I love the animal-based tracks in this game, and Faraway Oasis is no exception, but the track itself is a treat as well. It starts off with some simple turns and rails to grind on, but then you get to this water section which automatically spikes the difficulty due to the controls. But it also has multiple paths to pick from, some being out of water for an easier but slower time, with the main path being in the water at the cost of worse controls but a faster route. You've even got a grind rail that leads up to the upper path without water, which is always a blast to take. This entire section is just really well executed in my opinion. Of course, if you take the water path, you also have the opportunity to take a little mushroom-based shortcut, which is always a nice option. But the ending is where you can really change everything. The final corner has a classic sharp turn that you can take naturally, or break through some crates with a mushroom for an easy last second first place. Overall, this track just provides a lot of variety and replayability for a simplistic track, which I greatly appreciate. The amount of shortcuts there are, and the different ways you can take them, the alternate routes, it's all so fun. I just think it could have been a little longer. That's a problem with a lot of the tracks in this game I'm noticing. The normal 3-lap iterations are all relatively short all things considered, so they leave me wanting more. I suppose it's a good thing, as it makes me want to continue playing these tracks, but a little extra length wouldn't hurt either. Number 19. Peach Beach. Now this is how you completely revamp a retro track. The first lap is of course the traditional Peach Beach that we all know and love, but from the second lap onwards, this track turns into an entirely new experience we've never seen before. We take sharp turns and transition into this brand new city area with so many wall riding and rail grinding opportunities. But not only that, but so many alternate routes to take, which makes the replayability of this course insane. And the final lap has you gliding out of the city with even more wall riding and rail grinding opportunities as you descend. Then, you find yourself surfing on Peach Beach's ocean as you slowly loop your way back round to the finish line. This is what a retro track revamp should strive to be. They transformed Peach Beach from something I originally shrugged at into something truly special. The section format really helps this track stand out like never before, and I really do enjoy it here. I don't know if I could ever go back to the original after this, if we're being honest. Number 18. DK Pass. Yeah, I'm surprised I'm putting DK Pass this high too, but this track really surprised me. I never really cared for the original, but I think the 24 player increase as well as the Mario Kart Wii levels of item chaos really helped this one stand out this time around. Not only that, but the turns are surprisingly sharp and hard to take here, which I really do appreciate. I'm always a sucker for super sharp turns in my Mario Kart tracks, and this one does not disappoint. And don't even get me started on the shortcuts. Just a few seconds into the track, you can jump off the track to the sign and actually wall jump off it to create a shortcut. It's so easy to do and feels phenomenal every time. Of course, you also have your good old mushroom shortcuts that are great for snatching first at the last second, so those are always nice too. This is just one of those simple tracks that almost feels like a guilty pleasure to me. I know I shouldn't probably place it this high on the list, but I can't help it. It's genuinely just never boring to race on for me. I'm always excited to play this one. The sharp turns, the shortcuts, the obstacles such as the giant snowball, the chaos of 24 players, it all combines into something really fun and special here. Number 17. Shy Guy Bazaar. Another incredible retro remake, and one I've been asking for since the Boosticles Pass was revealed. It's exactly as I remember it, but with triple the amount of alternate routes this time around. The amount of routes there are, right at the start, is honestly insane. There are so many paths you can take from the grind rails to the paths themselves. This track might arguably be one of the most replayable tracks for that reason. It feels like there's almost always a new route to take here. And of course, I cannot forget to mention that this is the Sarasaland track now. Even the track icon is Daisy's castle itself. A shame that the castle wasn't a part of the track similar to Starview Peak with the Comet Observatory, but I think this track is executed leagues better than that one was, so I'm willing to forgive it a little more here, even if it is a missed opportunity. It'd probably be even higher if the castle was here though, but even in its current state, I cannot get enough of this one. The turns are a blast, the theming is better than ever, the alternate routes allow for endless replayability, and overall, this is just a very well executed retro track. It was well worth the wait. Number 16. Salty Salty Speedway. This track genuinely surprised me. This is by a long shot my favourite water-based track in the game, and it doesn't even come close right now. There are so many alternate routes that you can take on this one, from grind rails at the start to the iconic shortcut that was showcased in the Mario Kart World Direct. This track is just a blast to master. My only genuine complaint is that it's another track that's just really short. I would have loved to see this one go on for just a little longer, but alas, I'm still happy with what we got here. I'm especially excited to see how the time trials for this track evolve over time. Number 15. Peach Stadium. Grand Prix did not do this course justice, because the natural 3-lap iteration is genuinely a blast to race on. Maybe that's my bias towards simple tracks talking, because by now you guys should know that I'm a sucker for simple tracks, but I cannot help but love this one. There's so many alternate routes to take, the music and visuals are really pretty, and the concept of having a track loop around Peach's castle after it has been in so many Mario Kart games is so overdue. The only time the castle has actually been directly involved with any of these tracks, to my knowledge, is Mario Kart 7's Mario Circuit. So to finally have another track actually involving the castle is really neat. One of my favourite parts has to be the classic feather grind rail shortcut Nintendo showcased in the Direct. This one never gets old. But the turns themselves are also just really fun to drift around, and it's another one of my guilty pleasure tracks for sure. I have a feeling a lot more people would like this one if 200cc was still around. Maybe one day. Number 14. Wario Stadium. The final Nintendo 64 track that had yet to be remade has finally gotten its long overdue remake. And let me tell you, it's a remake that was desperately needed. The original Wario Stadium might be one of my all-time least favourite tracks. It was tediously long, it was a bumpy track in an era where tricking wasn't even a thing yet, the walls were just Wario's face plastered across the entire track, which I will admit was a little charming. And overall, it was just a very boring experience. But this? Oh my god, where do I even begin? First off, we're actually in an era where tricking not only exists now, but more so than ever with this game having multiple tricks in one jump. So just the natural ramp spam of this map is a blast to mess around with now. The number of alternate routes is actually insane, with there being grind rails on almost every wall, and you've also got a bunch of shortcuts to mess around with as well. I feel like the original did everything wrong, whereas this iteration does everything right. The complete 180 I had with this map was the most unexpected turn of events ever. I definitely see this being one of, if not the most fun track to grind in time trial mode. Number 13. Whistlestop Summit. This was probably the track I was expecting to like the least out of the Mushroom Cup tracks going into this game, and yet it somehow managed to thoroughly surpass my expectations. The music is phenomenal and immediately gets you in the mood for what this track has to offer. It does an absolutely flawless job at showcasing the grind rails and their potential, and the shortcuts and alternate routes the track has are nothing short of a blast. I genuinely have nothing negative to say about this one. It's just a fun time from beginning to end. Enough said. Number 12. DK Spaceport. This one is just a blast, man. A track based around the original arcade Donkey Kong game is ingenious on its own, but the way they executed it is really fun. Each lap consists of an entirely unique section, from one dedicated to grinding on rails, to another showcasing your ability to wall ride, to even one dedicated to throwing barrels at you, with you having to bounce over them just like the original game. And the finale of the track is something else. As soon as the final lap starts, a remix of the hammer theme from the original game starts playing, and gets your heart racing as the giant Robo DK starts chucking barrels your way, bouncing you off the ground. You rush past the barrels and realise that in order to finish the race, you have to speed past him from under his legs. But if you don't succumb to the pressure and evade his attacks, you realise you've won the race and completed the original arcade Donkey Kong as you glide back down from the top. Just what a phenomenal track, dude. Everything about this is just so amazing, and I'm shocked it took them this long to do something like this. It implements all of the new mechanics flawlessly and puts your newfound skills to the test. It spices things up every lap so that the track remains interesting from beginning to end, and the OST as you ascend further and further up the track is nothing short of a masterpiece. Just an incredible experience. Number 11. Crown City. This might be another controversial take, as I've seen some pretty mixed reviews on Crown City, but I think the Grand Prix, just like Peach Stadium, did this one incredibly dirty. Grand Prix basically only showcases the second lap of this track, but the 3-lap variant basically has you driving around the majority of the city, and it is leagues better than what the Mushroom Cup showcases. Starting out with some pretty tight turns through alleyways, into a skate park segment with an optional mushroom shortcut, to then reaching the lap that Grand Prix showcases as you grind across rails, parkour across the rooftops of buildings, and of course, jump through the iconic Crown City trophy. And then as you glide into the final lap, you continue to evade traffic and take some pretty fun turns, with there being some more optional mushroom shortcuts and grind rails along the way. And eventually, you reach the finish line, bringing the course full circle. It could be seen as just another basic track, but man, the 3-lap iteration of this one is just so unbelievably fun in my opinion. It's a perfect blend of simplicity while still having enough going on throughout the 3 laps to keep me invested. And again, each lap being its own section of Crown City is a great touch and makes the track way better than it would have been otherwise. This track is a prime example of why I'm ranking the 3-lap iterations, because Grand Prix does a terrible job at showcasing some of these tracks with the intermission format. If I was ranking the Grand Prix version of Crown City, this probably would have been pretty close to the bottom of the list as well as Peach Stadium. Number 10. Sky High Sundae. I was originally terrified when I saw they were bringing this one back. Not only because it was one of the weaker tracks out of the entire Booster Cruise Pass in my opinion, but that's exactly the problem. We just got this track through the Booster Course Pass. It's barely a few years old and it's already coming back. Surely this cannot end well, right? This is just an obligatory filler track from the last entry? Well, I couldn't be happier to be wrong because, oh my god, did they absolutely knock this remake out of the park. Graphically, it looks leagues better than the oversaturated deluxe variant. It has potentially the most alternate routes out of any track in the game, so the replayability is off the charts. The shortcuts are absolutely nuts, with you literally driving on the edge of the track's walls for some of them. And overall, I just cannot get over how phenomenal this track is now compared to what we had before, where I would shrug it off without a second thought. This is by far one of the best remakes of a retro track they've ever done, and just like with Peach Beach, or maybe even more so, this is what a retro remake should strive to be. Fix the old version's flaws, as well as improve and expand upon it in almost every way. Good on you, Sky High Sundae. I'm glad you're still here with us. Number 9. Mario Circuit. Yeah, this would probably automatically be at the bottom of most people's lists, solely because of how tired people are of Mario Circuit by now. But I can say with confidence that this is my favourite iteration of Mario Circuit by a mile. The entire concept is that this version of Mario Circuit is a fusion of SNES Mario Circuit 1, 2, and 3. Not sure why they left 4 out, but I guess they just hated it so much that they banished it to the dark depths of Nintendo HQ's basement. Nonetheless, this track is such a blast to race on, especially with 24 players and the absurd item chaos of World. Almost every turn is a super sharp one, and you guys know how much I love my sharp turns. Combine that with the absolutely classic music of Mario Circuit, and you've just got yourself an inoffensive fun time here. Sure, could other tracks have taken its place? Absolutely. But I'm more than happy with what we got here, and I'm glad we now have a more definitive version of this track. Number 8. Toad's Factory, the absolute icon of a track from Mario Kart Wii that Nintendo was teasing since the trailer from the Switch 2 Direct. It's basically just more Toad's Factory but with some new additions for the new mechanics. And of course, the iconic Toad's Factory music that they somehow made even better than it was originally. I didn't even think that that was humanly possible to do, but Nintendo somehow did it. There's really not much that I can comment on here. It really is just more Toad's Factory. We've been anticipating its return, and here it is. I do appreciate the added shortcut though that they added at the end of the track where you can grind rail on metal beams to get ahead. That's a neat addition that I do appreciate. But other than that, this is basically just more Toad's Factory, and that's all it really needed to be, so I'm glad you're here, buddy. Number 7. Dry Bones Burnout. This track was one of the most pleasant surprises out of the entire track list for me. At first, I wasn't sure what to make of it, and wasn't sure if I was even going to end up liking it at all. But the more I've played this one, the higher it's gotten on my list. In World, I think tracks with multiple paths and routes to take are always a good idea, as it allows you to have the choice to avoid the extra players or the increased item chaos of World, and in my opinion, Dry Bones Burnout does a better job at doing so than any other track in the game. The entire track is essentially based around the multiple pathways that it provides, and every one is a blast to take. Which one you take solely depends on what's going on in the race at that point in time, and that's what I love about it. It feels like what you do and where you go is always changing on the fly based on what's going on around you. No route feels right or wrong, unlike a track such as Starview Peak, where sure, there are 2 roads, but the yellow one is objectively slower and only exists as a way to avoid chaos and nothing more. Not to mention it's like the only alternate route in the entire track, and it's like one small turn. But here, there's never less than 2 paths to take, and that's so cool for replayability. And again, just being able to pick your path based on the kind of player you are and what's going on in the race is such a cool concept, and it's executed near flawlessly here. Just overall, an insanely solid track. Over time, I could genuinely see this becoming my favourite in the entire game. It's not there quite yet, but it's growing on me fast. I mean, it went from being pretty low on the list to this high almost immediately, so imagine where it could be a few months from now. I'm excited to spend more time with this one and see whether my opinions change even more positively, or even negatively. Number 6. Airship Fortress. An absolute classic from the DS makes its grand return, and boy was it worth the wait. I mean, what do I even have to say here, man? It's the Airship Fortress we all know and love, with its iconic turns and obstacles, but expanded upon and better than ever. You have grind rails left, right and centre just waiting to be utilised. You've got the incredible Airship Fortress remix pumping you up, and it's just the same track we remember, but simply better, just like Toad's Factory. That's really all I can say about this one. It's just Airship Fortress again, but improved upon with World's new additions. I really couldn't have asked for anything more here. I especially like how the relatively tight roads of this track complement the 24 players and item chaos well. The tighter tracks with more traditional Mario Kart designs tend to be a blast for the added chaos of world in my opinion, and Airship Fortress is one of the best examples of that. It's just a phenomenal track no matter which way you slice it. Number 5. Acorn Heights. Another track that pleasantly surprised me. This seems to be a trend with this game's courses, doesn't it? Nonetheless, Acorn Heights is essentially this game's version of Wild Woods if I had to compare it to anything. And in my opinion, even as someone that loves Wild Woods, this track is 10 times better in my eyes. Every turn is a blast to take, with you starting out driving through the giant tree itself, and then you're once again spoiled with alternate routes and shortcuts. Whether that be leaves, mushrooms, wall riding, vine grinding, or even dirt patches for iconic mushroom shortcuts. Then, you reach the climax of the track where you're greeted by even more alternate routes, while acorns come raining down on you as you make the final turn towards the finish line. It's all just so good, man. And can I just say that this track also has one of my favourite Nitro Course themes in the entire game. I absolutely love the almost Scottish/Irish vibe that this song has. Just take a listen. Tell me you don't hear what I mean when I say that. This theme just screams Scottish or Irish to me, and it just, oh my, it's so good in all the best ways. It's so unique compared to the music we typically get in Mario Kart, or the Mario franchise in general, so I really appreciate the change of pace here. It suits the track flawlessly and puts me in a good mood every time I play it. Number 4. Bowser's Castle. This might be recency bias talking, but I genuinely think this might be my new favourite Bowser's Castle, and it's not even close right now. You start out with tight turns off the rip with some optional grind rails hanging from the ceiling. Then, you make your way to a section with more tight turns as lava bubbles also fly out from the ground. Either way, after that, you snag an item box and go flying through what looks like a cyclone of lava at max speed. But things have only just begun, as you realise the next section forces you into this speed boosted state that almost feels like this game's iteration of 200cc, and it is absolutely crazy. But things get crazier as you then fly through the mouth of Bowser himself with his teeth glowing with lava. As you grab another item box, you glide towards a goddamn meteor shower raining down on 2 paths that you can choose between. Thankfully there are indicators on the ground so you're not going in completely blind. Nonetheless, you're driving through this meteor shower at max speed as you're still under the effects of this speed boost, but thankfully things start to calm down as you make your final jump towards the finish line and the speed boost finally vanishes. Oh my god, man, what an absolutely insane Bowser's Castle. Every second is absolutely action-packed, and the music definitely helps solidify that fact. The speed boost section is easily one of my favourite sections of any track in the game, and this definitely won't be the last time we'll see it either. This track just has so much going for it, and it's a shame that most people don't really seem to enjoy this one as much as some of the past iterations. It feels like it's one of the more mixed Bowser Castles, and I hope it grows on people, because damn is it a fun one. Number 3. Great Question Block Ruins. This track looked phenomenal from the second we saw it, and I'm glad I wasn't wrong in assuming I'd love it. Everything about this track is just an absolute treat from beginning to end. All the different routes you can take, the theme of the track itself, the music, and of course, it wouldn't be a Great Question Block Ruins segment without mentioning one of the most iconic shortcuts in Mario Kart World currently. Just take a look at this. This is by far my favourite shortcut in the game currently. It is always so thrilling attempting this, especially when doing so successfully is the only thing that will snag you that first place. Just an absolutely phenomenal track, dude. This is another one of those tracks where I'm just so excited to see where time trials go for it over the next few years. It feels like one of those tracks that will be a blast to push to its limits. But how far can they be pushed? Well, only time will tell us the answers to those questions. Number 2. Dino Jungle. Yeah, this is by far the most unexpected placement on the entire ranking. Even for me, I was shocked at just how much I enjoyed this remake of Dino Jungle. So much so that it's taken home the silver trophy. I have a lot to say about this one, so let's start off simple by saying that the remix of Dino Jungle's theme is nothing short of spectacular. I can't believe how much catchier they made an already catchy as hell song. It just puts a smile on my damn face every time I play this track. But oh man, the track itself, what a goddamn treat. Things start off simple, with a big turn with an optional grind rail off on the grass. But on the main path, you have the first of many dinosaurs in your way. And of course, this game being as incredible as it is, you can use them as a ramp to trick off of. Absolutely insane. Anyway, after a few more sharp turns, you realise that they've transformed this damn track into a laboratory. This right here makes this track so much more memorable than it ever was in the past. This theming alone fits so absolutely flawlessly with this track that I cannot believe that it wasn't like this from the beginning. Oh, but before you enter the laboratory, you can of course surf on yet another dinosaur for style points if that's your thing. But this is where things get interesting. Inside the laboratory is not only the classic room filled with geysers and the classic mushroom shortcut, but grinding opportunities, alternate routes that weren't there before, such as this one where you can either wall ride up onto it or bounce up to it with the geysers. And of course, even more dinosaurs. There are more options than ever in this room, and it makes replaying this track an absolute thrill. It feels like there's a different way to go every time, as well as multiple ways to access each path. The variety and replayability is truly off the charts here, but as soon as you start the second lap, things really start to heat up. You come to realise that the dinosaurs and their movement patterns change with each lap. For example, on lap 2 in the laboratory, a T-Rex will break through the damn wall and charge at you, forcing you to make a quick decision as to how you're going to avoid it. And on lap 3, a bunch of the dinosaurs will start invading the main path, forcing you to make some narrow squeezes depending on what place you're in the race. Because of course, depending on how far into the race you are, the dinosaurs could be in different locations, so the laps could feel entirely different in first place compared to something like 12th place or even 24th place, solely due to the dinosaurs' behaviour. Every placement essentially makes the track feel entirely different, which once again, heavily adds to its replayability. Nonetheless, an alternate gate near the laboratory's entrance that has been closed the entire race up to this point also opens up on lap 3, and you can take it as yet another alternate route if you want to spice things up. I just don't think there are words to describe how much I adore this track. I was always a Dino Jungle fan, but never have I been as interested and in love with the track as I am with this iteration specifically. I absolutely love how the laps naturally progress as more and more dinos bring chaos to the race. Alternate routes like the gate open up later in the race, and the sheer variety in routes you can go and the different ways that you can access said routes. It's all just so damn fun, man. I was genuinely not expecting this track to even make the top 10 at first, but for it to take home second place like it's nothing, that is impressive and shocked even me. And this tier list is based on my damn opinions. I should have seen this coming. Either way, this is one of the few placements on this list that I don't see changing anytime soon. I see myself enjoying this track just as much as I do now for months if not years to come. Number 1. Rainbow Road. You all saw this coming from a mile away, didn't you? No pun intended, of course, as we are miles above the ground in Mario Kart World's iteration of the iconic Rainbow Road. Where do I even begin with this one? I suppose we can start with the visuals, which, oh my god, this is the most stunning Rainbow Road by an absolute landslide, and it's not even close, dude. And the music? Absolutely angelic, exactly as it should be. Anyway, onto the track itself. You start out with your basic turns on some absolutely massive roads, and eventually make your way to this one part of the track where all of the Grand Prix trophies reside. This is a really cute detail, and you can tell it's supposed to be the main portion of the track, as you can not only see this specific turn from the second you load up the track, but it's also the exact piece of Rainbow Road that they showcase in the little Grand Prix showcase before the cup begins. Either way, shortly after that, you'll make your way to a split path that you can choose between. As I've said before in tracks such as Bones Burnout, alternate routes in this game are always a treat, so seeing them here in Rainbow Road is exactly that. After that though, you'll reach the second lap, and this is where you come to realise that this isn't just your traditional Rainbow Road rodeo. Lap 2 has you gliding into this almost fizzy looking river, as you use your water driving skill from across your journey to traverse this lap. Loomers also spectate the race throughout this section, which is a phenomenal nod to not only Super Mario Galaxy of course, but a great callback to Wii's Rainbow Road as well, that also heavily referenced Galaxy with starbits floating around the track. Once you escape the fizzy waters however, you're back on the not so Rainbow Road, as it has been enveloped in a more bluish colour scheme to represent lap 2. The iconic train from 64's Rainbow Road also makes its grand return here in the form of the Sunshine Railway. I'm pretty sure this is the train from Whistlestop Summit too, so this is yet again another 2-in-1 reference. After once again picking your path, you eventually make it to lap 3, and this is where this Rainbow Road truly begins to shine. You glide out of the clouds and into space itself as the once dark blue sky darkens into pure black. And what's that in the distance? Is it a space station? That's right. Yet another reference has hit us hard, and this time it is of course a reference to 8's Rainbow Road and its space station's theme. This area also has a cool little ramp shortcut that can be taken with a mushroom to save a few seconds, so keep that in mind whenever you're passing this area. Either way, you once again pick your path. I personally prefer the right path here, and I'll explain why later, and you're reaching the climax of the third lap. But not before making your way through this incredible looking rainbow section with rainbow swamps to boot. There are alternate paths that you can take here too, so pick wisely. Remember how I said I prefer taking the right path in the space station area? Well, I also take the left path here, and that's because the left path is way harder than the right in my opinion. The turns feel way sharper, and it overall feels like a tougher experience. So if you're looking for a challenge, take those paths and you'll definitely be in for one. Nonetheless, let me now mention my favourite part of this entire lap, and that's the climax of its music. Right as you're reaching the end of lap 3, you'll notice a familiar sounding beat in the background. Could it be? Yep, that's the leitmotif from Mario Kart World's main theme. Take a listen. If that doesn't get your blood pumping, nothing will. Nonetheless, as you finally reach the climax of lap 3 and enter the fourth and final lap, you realise that this Rainbow Road was only just beginning to blow your mind. Lap 4 starts with you literally gliding back down to Earth itself, and as if that wasn't enough, you're also able to spot many of the locations from throughout your journey, with Starview Peak, Bowser's Castle and Crown City being some of the easier ones to spot. Let me know how many you can see. But before we get into lap 4 itself, let me rewind a little. I want you guys to pay close attention as we enter lap 4, and let me know if you hear anything out of the ordinary. Did you hear it? Let's play that one more time. Yep, That's right. The final lap of Rainbow Road has its own final lap jingle that no other track uses. It has that extra dramatic, intense tone that perfectly complements the camera's slow pan back down to earth. And as if that didn't already send chills down your spine, the music kicks in with an insane drum solo before the main song itself returns at full force. The music goes all out as it tries its hardest to hype you up for the final stretch of your journey. You're gliding through rings as the swirly rainbow pattern rotates around you. You land on the orangey road as the Sunshine Railway passes you, and everyone you met across your journey rides upon it. You once again pick your path as the music only gets more and more intense and angelic, really emphasising the end of this journey. Massive speed panels appear as you drift around absurdly large corners. You glide back onto the true Rainbow Road one final time and take some of the last tight turns of your entire journey. And as the Sunshine Railway passes you one final time, with everyone there to greet you, you glide through the massive rings scattered in rotating superstars and complete the race. What an absolute masterpiece of a Rainbow Road. This right here is not only my favourite track in Mario Kart World, but potentially my current favourite track in the Mario Kart series. Everything about it is just so flawlessly executed. The absolutely god-tier angelic music that feels like a celebration of not only Rainbow Road, but the entire Mario Kart and Mario franchises. The sections with each lap as they escalate more and more with each one. And the way it all ends with the camera slowly panning down to earth with the unique, intense final lap jingle. When I say actual chills were sent down my spine when I first experienced that, that would be an understatement. This track truly feels like a celebration of Rainbow Road, Mario Kart, and the Mario series as a whole. And with Mario's 40th anniversary being this year, I don't think this Rainbow Road could have been timed any better. It genuinely comes close to bringing me to tears with how perfect it all is. The only thing I could nitpick about this track is the fact that it's a little low on the difficulty side of things, which is Rainbow Road's main gimmick as the final track of each game. But even then, I really just cannot bring myself to care about that enough at this point in time. Maybe as the months and years go by, this track will show its age and I'll care more about that stuff. But at this point in time, I cannot consider it anything less than my favourite track in Mario Kart World. And yeah guys, that is my ranking of every Mario Kart World track. Let me know if you agree or disagree with this list, and if so, what placements would you change? This is my first time doing a video like this, so I really enjoyed doing something out of my element here. I doubt I'll do consistent ranking videos in the future unless you guys really end up enjoying this one that much, but I still had an absolute blast sharing my opinions on this game's tracks with you all. And I'm especially excited to see just how this video ages over the coming months and years. How much will my opinions change? Maybe we'll revisit this video a few years down the line when this game inevitably gets DLC tracks. We'll see. But for now, that's going to do it for this video, guys. So with that said, thank you dudes for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, peace out.